How are you, Pat?
I'm doing great, Rich. How are yourself?
I'm doing fine. So if I had to give you a choice of saying Alabama's that good or USC's really that bad, what would you choose?
Can I have both, please?
No, you may not, sir. I want one. That's sports talk radio.
Right.
There's no nuance. It's either one or the other.
All right, we deal in absolutes, always. So I'm going to say USC's that bad. I think they were atrocious. I thought they were awful. I was shocked for a team with 10 returning starters on offense that they couldn't do anything. They were totally overwhelmed and unprepared and lost their poise. They were destroyed at the line of scrimmage. And, yeah, I think Alabama's really good, but still, as Nick Saban himself said, and it wasn't just Saban's spin, he didn't think they played that great. They played great in some areas, but offensively they were like they would click for a play or two, and then they would not for a long period of time. So they got a lot of room to get better. I think USC was terrible.
And your line in your column where you called Pat Hayden, the former athletic director who installed Clay Helton after the UCLA win last year, you called Pat Hayden the Herbert Hoover of athletic directors, Pat. That one jumped off my iPad at me. So what?
It might have been an uncharitable comparison.
Yeah, I think so. So what does USC do? Do you start, if you're a Trojan fan, wonder if Clay Helton is the guy? Do you really start wondering that, or is it too soon?
I don't know how you could not wonder. I mean, he's coached 3 games as the full-time head coach. He's lost them all. He's 0-3. Yeah, the competition's been good. I mean, it was Stanford in the Pac-12 championship game. That was a blowout. It was Wisconsin in a bowl game. USC was favored in that and lost. And then it was Alabama. This was the worst loss for USC in 50 years, since 1966. And this is USC we're talking about. And the old, excuse that we've heard for years, well, the scholarship reductions from the NCAA sanctions, well, those are over. They have 82 guys on scholarship out of a possible 85. They have supposedly signed good recruiting classes. As I said, they had a lot of veterans returning, and they looked as bad as I've ever seen USC look. So, there's a lot to worry about there. Now, obviously, Clay Helton is 3 games into his full-time tenure. You're not going to change that right now, but I think there's plenty of reason to wonder why they hired him in the first place.
Pat Forde of Yahoo Sports joining me here on the Rich Eisen Show. So what do you think Saban did not like about that win, other than, I guess, the arguments that happened on the sideline and – the 3 points? I mean, what else?
Yeah, that means slow start. First quarter, they were not good at all. The offensive line really was unimpressive in the first quarter. Other than Damian Harris broke a couple of runs, but they didn't get many runs to the second level of the defense. And the intermediate passing game wasn't there either. Jalen Hurts, the true freshman, showed he's got a lot of talent and a huge arm, and he made some big throws downfield, but he didn't show that he can complete 10, 15-yard passes. What's going to happen on those 3rd and 8, 3rd and 10s against good teams? Can you be accurate enough and have your timing down well enough to make those throws? It's one game. They'll get a lot better. Probably nothing major to worry about, but they were not a smooth, high-polished machine.
And Alabama's win over USC, one of 12 out-of-conference games for SEC teams over the weekend. They went 6-6. 500 is not a number that normally is associated with SEC football. Pat, what do you make of the first weekend for the SEC in 2016?
Very disappointing for the SEC, no doubt about it. It was not like the usual, bully of the schoolyard. Part of that, I'll give them credit, they played a lot of good teams. I mean, they took on, LSU went and played Wisconsin in the state of Wisconsin. Ole Miss played Florida State in the state of Florida. Alabama played an ostensible quality opponent. Georgia did as well. They played a lot of good games, but still 6-6 is not good. And the biggest problem, Rich, was the offenses looked as bad as they did last year for the most part. Actually, even worse. As of right now, there's no SEC offense that's in the top 45 in the country. It's one game in, small sample size, but this was a league that wasn't that very spectacular on that side of the ball last year and had a lot of question marks as far as quarterback play coming in, and I think most of those question marks are still there and have not been answered.
So in Houston's win over Oklahoma, did Houston cost itself a chance to make the Big 12? Because I'm sure Oklahoma's president and athletic director aren't raising their hand right now saying you want Houston to join the Big 12, Pat.
Yeah, and they cast one of 2 of the most important votes, them and Texas. But Texas is like, yeah, bring them in. They've already said so, in fact. No, I think they only help themselves, and I thought they could win. I really did. I think Tom Herman is the truth. I think he's one of those guys that could be the next, Urban Meyer type guy who just everybody can tell how good a coach he is. And if you remember, it was Florida and Notre Dame fighting to get Urban when he was coming from Utah, and there's going to be a fight, I would think, after this year to see who can land Tom Herman. So they are very, very good in Oklahoma for probably the 10th time in the last 12 years or 10 years or so has been overrated.
Do you want to ask Pat Forde the poll question, Chris Brockman? Because this is an opinion I'd like to hear on our poll question that's available on the Rich Eisen Show app. Go for it, Chris.
Yeah, Pat, who had the most disappointing college week one? Was it Oklahoma, LSU, Notre Dame, UCLA, USC?
Well, I would say USC. I'm pretty well on record saying what a bust that was. But I would say LSU is a very competitive second there because, that's another team. That's a veteran team. There's no excuse for LSU to be scraping around, scoring one offensive touchdown. They're going to have Leonard Fournette, who is a singular talent, for 3 years and do nothing with him at this rate. They're one loss away from having no chance of going to the playoff and basically having squandered probably the best running back in school history. So there you go, Les Miles. He's back on the hot seat immediately.
So is there anything concrete that we could take out of week one? This is an incredible week, Pat. This is awesome. There was just so much thrown at me and thrown at all the listeners and viewers of this show. Is there anything that you could sort of overarching sum up for week one of the college football season here?
Well, it was the best opening week I think ever, and so I think we can draw some conclusions because they were playing good teams. We saw good teams play other good teams, so that was awesome to see. I think Texas shows signs of being back. I was really impressed. I was there for that game, and they've been dying for an offense, and they've got one, and they've shown some vitality, and the crowd was so excited. I talked to Ben Crenshaw at halftime, the great golfer who's also a huge Texas fan and an alum, and he was just like giddy. He was like, they're throwing passes right here, and he held his hands out about 6 inches from his chest, like, we don't see that. We haven't seen an accurate quarterback in years. So they're just thrilled to death, and I think with good reason because they got a lot of good players there all of a sudden.
Yeah, and DeAndre Francois, Florida State, some of the freshmen. There's my NFL talk with the rookies. Some of these freshman quarterbacks looked superb over the weekend.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, DeAndre Francois, who got punched in the mouth for a half and looked a little bit, dazed and confused, but then what a rally. Unbelievable last night what he was able to do. He looks like a special kind of guy. Hurts again at Alabama. At Alabama, you don't have to be a great quarterback. You just have to be a good quarterback. I think eventually he can be a great one, but he got off to a very good start. So, yeah, a lot of young quarterbacks playing extremely well right away.
So did your Final Four get any changed? Your preseason prediction of Final Four after week one? Where does that currently stand, Pat?
Yeah. I had Alabama in there. I had Clemson. I'm keeping them. I'm moving Florida State in, and I'm moving Houston in. And I am admittedly, unabashedly, unapologetically prisoner of the moment with this because I try to do it just based on what I've actually seen as opposed to what I think is going to happen preseason.
Yeah.
And so I saw Houston play a great game against the team that went to the playoff last year. So I'm putting Houston in there right now.
All right, Pat. Thanks very much. Let's chat down the line. Always love reading your stuff, and great line, like I said, what you said about Pat Hayden, even though folks around here.
You are not the Herbert Hoover of radio.
Thank you.
You do a great job.
Well, am I the Grover Cleveland Alexander, where I get one shot and then maybe another? I don't know.
I'm going to give you at least Woodrow Wilson.
Thank you, Pat. Thank you. I'm on the League of Nations radio host staff. Thank you very much. This is Pat Forde.
The Rich Eisen Show, weekdays at noon Eastern on Audience.